The schoolhouse bell rang over a town that had already decided Clara Whitmore was guilty. Dust rolled across Mercy Creek's main street in dry brown sheets. It scraped against windows, stung eyes, and gathered in the cracks of every wooden porch. For 3 months, no rain had touched the valley. The creek had thinned to a silver thread, and men who once tipped their hats to Clara now stared at her like she had stolen the sky itself. Inside the meeting hall, the air was hot, close, and angry. Clara stood near the front with her hands folded tight around her school satchel. Her blue dress was plain, her boots dusty, her dark hair pinned back with care. She had taught nearly every child in Mercy Creek to read, write, and say their prayers. But that morning, kindness had vanished from familiar faces. Silas Crowley stood beside the judge's table, his silver vest bright beneath his black coat. He owned the largest cattle spread in the valley, and half the thirsty men in town owed him money. "The water rights records are gone," Silas said, raising a scorched leather folder. "Burned in the clerk's office last night, and Miss Whitmore was seen leaving that office after sundown." A murmur passed through the room. Clara's breath caught. "I went there to collect spelling papers from Mr. Adler, nothing more." "Then why was your handkerchief found beside the ashes?" Silas asked. Sheriff Ethan Hale stood near the wall, one thumb hooked near his badge. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with sun-browned skin and tired gray eyes. Clara had known him for 2 years. He had fixed the schoolhouse steps after a storm. He had once walked her home when drunk cowhands shouted from the saloon. But now he looked at her like the law had placed a wall between them. Judge Pritchard leaned forward. "Miss Whitmore, those records protected every small farmer's claim to Mercy Creek. Without them, Mr. Crowley's oldest deed may stand above all others." "That is exactly why I would never burn them," Clara said. Her voice trembled, but she did not lower her head. Silas gave a sad shake of his head, as if her ruin pained him. "Maybe not for yourself. Maybe someone paid you." The crowd turned sharper. Clara felt the old wound open inside her. Years ago, a man named Daniel Price had promised to marry her, then left town with her savings and her trust. People had whispered then, too. They had called her foolish, desperate, too soft-hearted to see truth. Now they were whispering again. Sheriff Hale stepped forward. "Judge, there is no proof she started that fire." "But there is enough suspicion to protect this town," the judge replied. "Until the county marshal arrives, Miss Whitmore will leave the schoolhouse and stay outside town limits." Clara stared at him. "You are casting me out." "For public peace," he said. Public peace. The word struck harder than a slap. Martha Bell, the school cook, rose from the back bench. "That woman fed children from her own pantry when their fathers had no flour. Shame on all of you." "Sit down, Martha," Silas said coldly. Ethan looked at Clara. Something moved in his eyes, not belief, not fully, but pain. "I'll escort her," he said. The walk to the schoolhouse felt longer than any road Clara had ever taken. Children watched from behind curtains. A tin cup rolled across the empty yard. The school bell rope moved in the wind with a dry little creak. Ethan walked beside her, silent. At last Clara stopped on the schoolhouse porch. "Do you believe I did it?" His jaw tightened. "I believe evidence can lie when men arrange it right." "That is not an answer." "No," he said softly, "it is not." She looked away before tears could shame her. "I have spent my life teaching children that truth matters. Today their parents taught them truth is weaker than fear." Ethan's face changed. "Clara, I don't want you hurt. But you will still make me leave. I wear this badge. And I wear their blame." For a moment, the dusty yard between them felt full of words neither dared to speak. Inside, Clara packed her few books, slate pencils, and the small attendance ledger she kept by hand. Each page held children's names, their parents' names and notes about who came during harvest, who missed lessons for sickness, who signed for school supplies. As she lifted it, a folded scrap slipped from the back cover. Ethan picked it up first, his eyes narrowed. "What is it?" Clara asked. He opened the paper. It was not a letter. It was a copied line from an old water agreement written in a clerk's hand. 3 names stood beneath it. One was Silas Crowley. One was a dead farmer named Bell. And the last name made Ethan go still. Thomas Hale. His father. Clara saw the blood drain from his face. Ethan. Before he could answer, footsteps sounded outside. Heavy boots stopped at the porch. Silas Crowley's voice came through the door. "Sheriff, bring her out. The town wants to watch Miss Whitmore leave before sundown." Ethan folded the paper and slipped it into his coat. Then he looked at Clara, and for the first time that day, doubt was no longer aimed at her. It was aimed at Mercy Creek itself. By sundown, Mercy Creek looked less like a town and more like a powder keg waiting for one spark. Clara sat in the back room of Martha Bell's empty wash house beyond the east edge of town. The boards smelled of soap, dust, and old smoke. Through a cracked window, she could see the schoolhouse roof in the distance, dark against a red sky. Ethan had brought her there instead of the wagon camp. "You should have taken me past the town line," Clara said. Ethan stood by the door, listening for riders. "I should have done many things today." She looked at him carefully. "That paper frightened you." He pulled it from his coat and laid it on an overturned crate. His voice dropped low. "My father signed this." Clara stepped closer. The old ink was faded, but the names were clear. "Did he own land by the creek?" "No," Ethan said. "He was a deputy clerk before I was born. My mother told me he died owing money. She never said he had anything to do with water rights." A hard knock struck the front wall. Clara froze. "It's me," Martha called softly. Ethan opened the door. Martha hurried in carrying a flour sack, her bonnet crooked and her face pale. "They're saying Clara burned the record so small farmers would lose everything," Martha said. "Silas has men signing claims already." "That fast?" Ethan asked. "Fast as a snake strikes." Clara gripped her attendance book. "Then the fire was never about punishing me. It was about clearing the way." Martha's eyes went to the book in Clara's hands. "You still have that?" "I keep every child's record." "Then look at the supply pages from last spring," Martha said. "The children brought parent signatures when the school collected money for the new well pump." Clara opened the book with shaking fingers. Page after page showed names she knew by heart: Bell, Carter, Finch, Hale. Ethan leaned closer. There it was again. Thomas Hale. Not on a water deed, but as witness to a payment made by Martha's late husband. Martha swallowed hard. "My Samuel always said the old agreement was copied in more than one place. One went to the clerk. One went to the school because the school well sat on shared water land." Clara's heart jumped, "But I never saw such a copy." "Maybe you did," Martha said. "Maybe someone hid it where only old paper would be ignored." They searched by lantern light. Ethan pulled loose floorboards near the teacher's desk. Clara checked the shelves and primer books. Martha shook dust from old lesson charts. At last Clara found markings on the back of a torn map. Not words, small dots along the creek line, drawn in blue pencil. Ethan held it near the lantern. "These are survey markers," he said. "Can they prove anything?" Clara asked. "If the markers are still there, they prove the old shared boundary existed before Crowley's deed." A shout rose from town. Then another. Martha went to the window. "They're coming this way." Torches moved along the road. Clara's mouth went dry. "For me." Ethan buckled his gun belt tighter. For fear, men do foolish things when their wells run empty. He turned to Clara, and the stern sheriff mask fell away. I did not believe you fast enough. Her eyes softened, though pain still held her. No, you did not. I'm trying now. That may be all I have left. For one quiet breath, they stood close enough for Clara to feel the warmth of him. Not rescue, not pity, a choice. Then Martha shoved the attendant's book into Clara's satchel. Go to the dry river crossing. Find those markers before Silas does. Ethan opened the back door. Clara, stay behind me. This time she did not argue. They slipped into the dark behind the wash house as angry voices reached the front road. Dry grass scraped Clara's skirt. Ethan's hand found hers in the darkness, strong and steady. Halfway across the field, a gunshot cracked into the sky. Clara stumbled, but Ethan caught her. Keep moving, he whispered. They reached the old wagon trail under a moon thin as a blade. Ahead lay the dried river crossing, pale and silent between cottonwoods. Behind them, Mercy Creek burned with lanterns, lies, and thirst. Wait, before we move on, what do you think about the story so far? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I'm really curious to know. At the riverbank, Clara saw fresh boot prints in the dust. Someone had reached the markers first. The dry river crossing held the truth Mercy Creek had tried to bury. Clara stood beside Ethan beneath the cottonwoods, her breath tight in her chest. Moonlight silvered the cracked riverbed. Wagon ruts cut through the dust, and fresh boot prints circled the bank like wolves around a wounded thing. Ethan knelt and touched the ground. 3 men, maybe 4. Crowley's men? Clara asked. Most likely. A sound came from the far side of the crossing. Ethan pushed Clara behind him, but she stepped back to his side. She was done hiding behind any man's shadow, even his. Silas Crowley walked out from the cottonwoods with 2 hired riders behind him. His smile was calm, but his eyes were hard. You should have left when the judge told you, Silas said. Clara lifted her chin. And let you steal the creek. Silas laughed softly. Steal? This valley needs order. Small farmers waste water on dying gardens and weak cattle. I can make Mercy Creek rich. By ruining families, Ethan said. Silas looked at the badge on Ethan's chest. Careful, Sheriff. That badge belongs to the town. No, Ethan said. It belongs to the law. For a moment, no one moved. Then Martha Bell's voice rang from the trail. And the law has witnesses. Lanterns appeared one by one. Farmers, shopkeepers, parents, and older students gathered at the crossing. Martha had brought the town. Judge Pritchard came last, nervous and sweating. Silas's face darkened. This is private land. Clara opened her attendance book. No, it is shared water land. The school records kept parents' signatures from the well collection. Those names match the old agreement line found in my schoolhouse. That proves nothing, Silas snapped. Ethan walked to the riverbank and brushed dust from a half-buried iron stake. A faded blue mark showed beneath the dirt. Survey marker, he said. He moved 10 steps and uncovered another. Then another. The crowd murmured. These markers follow the shared boundary, Ethan said. My father witnessed the agreement. Samuel Bell paid into it. So did half the families standing here. Silas backed up. Old stakes can be planted. Martha stepped forward, holding a small tin school plate. Not with my Samuel's maker mark stamped on them. He forged these before he died. The judge bent close. His face went pale. Clara looked at the people who had condemned her. The records were burned because they protected you. I was blamed because I was easy to throw away. No one answered. Ethan turned to Silas. You ordered that fire. Silas's mask finally cracked. I did what weak men were too afraid to do. The words fell over the crossing like a church bell. Judge Pritchard straightened. "Silas Crowley, you will answer before the county marshal." Silas reached for his pistol, but Ethan was faster. He drew, steady and cold. "Do not," Ethan said. Silas froze. His riders dropped their hands. By morning, the town had changed. Silas was locked in the sheriff's office. Judge Pritchard sent riders for the county marshal. Men who had cursed Clara now stood outside the schoolhouse with lowered hats and ashamed eyes. Clara faced them from the porch. "I will teach your children," she said, "but I will not carry your guilt for you." One by one they apologized. Some cried. Some could not meet her eyes. Ethan waited until they were gone. "You could leave." Clara looked at the dry schoolyard, the bell rope, the dusty windows, and the children gathered nearby with books hugged to their chests. "I know," she said. "That is why staying means something." Rain came 3 days later. Not a storm. A gentle, steady rain that darkened the dust and filled Mercy Creek 1 inch at a time. The school reopened the next Monday. Children laughed by the riverbank where green shoots had already begun pushing through the mud. Clara climbed a ladder beside the schoolhouse and lifted a freshly painted bell into place. "Careful," Ethan called below, one hand steadying the ladder. She smiled down at him, still giving orders, "Sheriff. Only when my heart is up there with you." Her smile softened. She reached down, he took her hand. The bell rang clear over the restored creek, over children running with books, over a valley learning how to tell the truth again. And for the first time in years, Clara believed a promise could stay.